Hello and welcome to Business Today. Good morning. This is Union Budget Day 2025, the 1st of February. Nirmala Sitharaman's 8th outing, wearing Padma Shri Dulari Devi's Madhubani sari and very clearly carrying the hopes of 1.4 billion people in that budget Bahi Khata. On the show now with us, Madan Sabnavis, Chief Economist at the Bank of Baroda. We also have TP Oswal, CA and international tax expert, and Subhash Garg, former finance secretary, with us. Good morning to all of you. Let me go to you, Mr. Garg, first. If you were writing the budget today, what would your prescription be for an economy which is seeing lower growth, some amount of persistent inflation, and the fact that the consuming middle class seems to need a new deal?
Question. The setting for today's budget is somewhat somber. As you have also noted, the tax growth has been sort of not that great. The economic growth, nominal especially, is also somewhat down, less than 10%, much less than the assumed one. The government also is determined to come back to the fiscal deficit of 4.5%. So taking all these things, there is a resource constraint on the government. So you have to then take that into account while you draft your expenditure proposals. To my mind, the government has been very focused on increasing the capital expenditure, though this year the capex has been somewhat lower than what was planned. It might not exceed 10 trillion rupees or so. So I would suggest that I would have probably proposed that if you increase the capex further, improve the quality of the capex, because some of the capex which is going in, railways, BSNLs of the world, etc., is not very productive capex. So make the capex productive. That's one. Second, I think there is massive sort of resentment in the middle class, especially those who pay income taxes. That's not a very large number, by the way. Effectively, only about 3 crore people pay income taxes. Rest of the 7 crore get different kind of exemptions because of the 89C rebate and all. But the structure of income tax has been a very dated, problematic structure. Two pain points especially. Number one pain point, that the minimum threshold for the old scheme, which is where most of the taxpayers are, at 2.5 lakh rupees is a very low. It has remained unchanged for many years. Raise it to 5 lakhs.
Right.
There is absolutely no reason for not doing. And second thing, I think I would suggest that this 10 lakh slab which kicks in only at the income of 20 or 10 lakh rupees is also very low. Raise it to 25 and then they adjust. I think these would be the two top priorities. I think there would be something on the
Right. Let me go across to Madan Sabnavis before I go to the tax expert on the panel. Madan, let's try and decode this for our viewers from a different point of view, and you are an economist. Roughly 60% of all our GDP comes from spending by people. 30% is can be accounted for the fixed asset formation that happens, and the government of India's spending is 10%. So that accounts for the broad bulk. If 60% of GDP comes from personal spending, and we know what is happening to the overall growth trend over the past 3 years and projections for the future as well, do you think the budget's lever should be more directed towards this rather than continuously talking about capital expenditure, which is fine, infrastructure creation, which is fine, but also has its limitations given the structure of our economy? Madan Sabnavis.
Consumption and investment, it is interesting because whenever we are talking of anything to do with consumption, we are dealing with something which has to be done with taxes. When we are talking of investment, we are talking of something which has to be done with expenditure. Now, we should remember that the income tax has been one special case for the government where you're sure that you're going to collect your income irrespective of what happens. Okay, it's like GST. We'll say that your economy grows, your GST grows. Economy doesn't grow, your GST will not grow. Whereas all of us are income taxpayers, we pay our income tax regularly, whether or not our company or our firm is doing well or not. So that's an assured kind of an income which the government is getting. So any kind of a concession which the government is going to give there, we should remember, would mean that their revenue is going to fall. So when I'm talking of boosting consumption by say 60,000 crores or 1 lakh crores by giving income tax concessions, it also means that their revenue is going to get affected. When we're talking of investment, I think it's the other way around. We look at what is the overall size of the budget, which will again be fixed based on what you think the fiscal deficit ratio should be. Let's assume that from 48 lakh crores, the size of the budget goes to 53 lakh crores. There is a certain amount which you will have to adjust for inflation for your regular items like your subsidies, pensions, salaries, so on and so forth. And then we have something to play around with, which goes into capital expenditure. So I think the two issues of them are very much necessary. It becomes easier to focus on the expenditure part because there is more discretionary power out there. Whereas any kind of a concession which is given on income tax, which will be affecting potentially our consumption, is something which we'll have to do carefully because it could affect the overall flow of income, which in turn could be affecting your fiscal deficit. So I'm not too gung-ho about large-scale concessions being given on income tax. There would definitely be a certain amount given, but we should remember that suppose I were the finance minister, can I actually let go 1 lakh, 2 lakh crores to make sure that that income tax people benefit and I can use that resources? It would be a bit difficult given the overall situation that we're not talking of GDP growth crossing 10.5% this year. It's not that we're growing at 13, 14% where I could actually think of these kind of large adjustments. So it's going to be more or less moderate adjustments in the income tax structure this time.
Moderate adjustments in income tax. That's a good point to take to Mr. Oswal. Mr. Oswal, given the nature of government spending, interest burden, and all the needs, including 4 lakh crore plus of welfare spending, what is the scope for some sort of tweaking or overhaul of our direct taxes?
You see, the experience has proved right, saying that reduction in the rate of tax increases the collection of tax. But if you reduce the basic exemption limit and increase it substantially, that will reduce your number of taxpayers. So you should not. Ours is an economy where 70% of the people don't pay tax. Only we have 9 crore taxpayers who are filing the return. Out of 9 crore, 6 crores are filing below taxable limit. So zero tax. Only 3 crores are paying some tax. But out of that 3 crore, only 1 lakh people pay 99% of the tax of the country. And if that be the case, if you want to give some incentive or benefit, what the other speaker has spoken is increase the consumption. And if you want to increase the consumption, Income Tax Act is not the basis because, those people are not paying taxes. Only 3 crore people are paying taxes. And for them, reduction or increase in the tax doesn't affect at all. What is required to be done is the GST. And if GST is so significant, 18% with surcharge, cess, it goes to 28% on most of the consumers' item, cars, fridge, television, your washing machine, all these things I think needs rethinking on the subject. And today, because the government is giving freebies, every state has started giving freebies, laborers are not available. And therefore, it is necessary for us to do your work yourself. And if you want to do your work yourself, you need all these gadgets. And
Right.
if you need these gadgets, you are paying taxes 28%. Nobody can buy it.
Right. Subhash Garg, basis what Mr. Oswal is also saying, I want to ask you a question about the overall policy preferences we have seen in the last couple of decades with regard to our taxation architecture. In school, all of us read that indirect taxes are regressive, direct taxes are progressive because they are linked to income. Given the fact that there are large constituencies, political constituencies, which you cannot touch, which you cannot tax in India, is India now faced with a structural problem in its taxes that the only option of increasing the tax revenue base on a collective basis for the entire union, states and center together, is the regressive route of indirect taxes, and that also has a negative impact on consumption and GDP.
See, the indirect taxes are there. It's not that the indirect taxes are not there. They form about 48% of the central government's total tax collection. Its direct taxes are progressive, which is sensible, that whoever has very large incomes should pay higher taxes. It's related to the level of income, which is what it should be. Those who have low incomes shouldn't pay tax, and in fact they should get some subsidy support for keeping their consumption. So I think logic of direct taxes being progressive. We don't have, by the way, a wealth tax in the country, so the rich are not actually getting too much taxed in this country. That's
Are you
also
proposing that we should reimpose a wealth tax?
I have always argued that we should have a wealth tax in the country. Today,
Okay, let's take that to the rest of the panel. Good point. Just pause there, sir. Madan, would you support this idea of wealth tax also to address some of the inequity that we have seen in our growth in the recent past? Madan, that question was for you. Do you support the idea of a wealth tax that Mr. Subhash Garg, former finance secretary, is advocating?
No, I don't think it's a fair thing, because when we have a progressive tax structure, we have a progressive income tax structure. And I'm having a progressive tax even in terms of, like, say, let's say when you're talking of wealth, suppose I'm buying, say, a house for, say, 50 crores. I mean, we're paying a stamp duty for it. So I think we should not be taxing the same things again and again. So I'm not too much in favor of a wealth tax, but definitely having a progressive tax structure where my income is being taxed, my purchases are being taxed. So as was mentioned there, the highest GST is paid on goods which are supposed to be used more by the affluent people. I think that's already being done. So doing it multiple times to my mind may not be an equitable thing to do. It's not a fair thing to do, actually.
Mr. Oswal, what is your view? Do you support this idea?
What was the reason why wealth tax was abolished? The collection was lower than the cost of collection, and therefore wealth tax is a bad idea. But particularly in a country like ours, where most agriculturists and most people don't pay taxes at all, only you are burdening the taxpayers further and creating an incentive for them to be not reporting correctly the income. I think we should encourage people, first of all, if you want to really get more taxes, bring the rich farmers and rich agriculturists into the tax net, and not the wealth tax. If all the taxpayers, all the people in the country become taxpayers, then you bring the wealth tax or bring other taxes, is understandable. But we have no desire, we have no political ability, and we have no any other reason for increasing the taxes on the agriculturists. And if that be the case, why talk about the wealth tax? Though this is talked by OECD, IMF, World Bank, but in our country, circumstances and the situation is totally different than those countries which they are talking about, because all those countries do not have agricultural income tax exemption.
Okay.
We are exception.
can I explain the logic of what I'm saying?
Okay, quickly, Mr. Garg, before I go to other guests, go ahead.
See, the value add, which is the GDP, which everyone pays, is about 4 trillion in this country. The wealth, which is owned by only about 1 to 10% of the people, is 15 trillion. That goes a begging. If you want a progressive taxation system in the country, it's not only the income taxes, it is the wealth, where the largest inequity and largest concentration is. People with billions of dollars of wealth pay no tax on the wealth, right? Except when they make a transfer or so. So there is a very sound logic. The system which was there in the country before 2015 was a very moth-eaten, very badly designed kind of system. That is not what we should. We should get the wealth, which is, as I said, $15 trillion in the country.
Okay.
That should be.
Okay, that's a fair point. Let me go across to Anand Goenka, Senior Vice President of FICCI and Vice Chairman of the RPG Group. Anand, welcome to the show. We are counting down to Finance Minister's speech. At this stage, if you've been hearing what our experts have been saying, addressing inequity and also tweaking the tax structure, according to you as a producer, how important will be direct tax rationalization today in the budget for lifting the economy, growth, and also getting consumers back out into the markets?
I think it's a very important step to rationalize taxes, simplify it. That has been continuously happening by the government, and that should largely continue over time. I think two things that will really come out is it will help reduce the number of disputes over time. If there are too many layers and too many systems and processes in this, there can be more disputes. So that will come down. And the second is there'll be a release of working capital as well. But more importantly, I'd say putting money in the hands of the consumer, putting money in the hands of the middle and lower income by simplification and reduction of taxes will certainly help spur private consumption, private investment, which has not been happening for some time.
Anant, a follow-up. Why is it, according to you, that people in government do say on and off the record that private sector investment overall hasn't picked up to the extent that the government policymakers wanted? While after that tax break in 2019 September, there was COVID, but COVID is over now. Is this a fair criticism of the private sector?
Your voice is not very clear, but I think your question is around why has private investment not picked up?
Absolutely.
I'd say a few things. One is I feel if you look at the buying behaviors of the next generation, they are moving towards services, experiences. And if you look at travel, look at hospitality, there is a big shift. Hotels are fully booked up, flights are booked up. And so there is a clear shift towards the digital economy. And therefore, the product economy is not seeing that much of money going in.
Okay.
Second is, if you look at food inflation, that has been a little bit on the higher side. So at least at the lower income side, we need to work on bringing down food inflation by ensuring better supply side economics, climate resistant crops, better logistics. So that certainly will again release some money in the hands of the lower class, which will help invest in products which can spur private investment.
Okay. Let me go across to Harshvardhan Agarwal, President of FICCI and Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Imami. Harsha, welcome. Let me continue on the conversation that we are having, but I also want to bring in one more point. The economic survey yesterday making this very telling point that while corporate profitability is up, wage growth hasn't kept pace with that. The implicit comment there is that while companies are making more money, they are not paying employees as much, and that in some ways is impacting consumption and growth in India. Do you agree with that point?
I agree with that point, that corporate India is making profit and not paying to the salary, enough salary to the employees. See, because this is in a competitive scenario where everybody is looking for the best talent. If one company doesn't pay the right salary to a person, the other competitive company will, certainly take them up. So yes, the study is based on certain parameters. I think we need to look at that on what basis this data is being said. But, wherever, we have done our survey with our members, so what we have understood and what we clearly see that, the salary increase has been there for the employees, and hence, I would certainly, like to disagree to an extent there.
Okay. Harsha, tell me, what do you think is the single most policy measure, most important policy measure that our economy requires that? And after that question, I'll take the same one to Anant as well. But to you, Harsha, first, what is that single most important policy measure that our economy needs?
I think, what we need, are two very important things. One is the capex, which the government has been doing since some time, so to keep continuing that, because that has a big multiplier effect on the economy. And apart from that, how do we boost the consumption? Again, because that will have an effect on many other things, right from helping in bringing in increasing the private investment also, because that gives more confidence to the corporates if the consumption is robust, that yes, I can go ahead and invest more in my expansion or set up new industries. So these are the two, most important thing, where we would like to see something from the government.
Anand, that very same question to you.
I agree with Harsh's points, but to add one more point, I would say it is ease of doing business. The government has been on the journey, but we need to be globally competitive to export. Export is going to be our salvation in the long term. We have to grow export as a percentage of GDP or manufacturing, and and to do that, we have to have logistics cost continuously coming down with further investment in infrastructure. We have to make sure we make the next generation reforms in labor, in productivity, and in energy prices as well. So I think if we cover ease of doing business, we'll be in a much better place over time.
Visuals on air that are playing out is the finance minister leaving after the formal approval that was provided at the cabinet meeting to the budget. We have seen her out and about since the morning. In fact, for viewers, those who may not know, Padma Shri Dulari Devi's sari, a Madhubani sari that's been worn and clearly sending a signal for local craftsmanship in India once again. But there's another point that the economic survey made, and I tag some news that we have picked up before the budget, which is that the government is also likely to indicate a new reform roadmap in the budget. It may not have all the details, but it will be a continuous rolling process. At least that's the hope. Harsha, what kind of reforms does our economy, do our producers need at this stage for that 8% growth target that the economic survey spoke about to be achieved?
I think what one very important thing we would like to see is, how does the center and the state work together? Like we have this GST council. Can we have the center and a state similar kind of a council in some of the other areas where it's a state subject, like land, like labor, etc. Because that will help in ease of doing business, and certainly, it will take the overall Make in India policy also much forward.
Okay. Anand, on the impact of AI, and this was again an economic survey concern that came up, and I'm linking it to that the political dynamics around employment, job creation, wage growth. The economic survey seems to be putting out this warning, and obviously both the center and states need to be cognizant of this. In your own view, is this a very significant issue as far as future employment generation is concerned? Will AI actually cause further problems for the youth in India?
I don't believe that AI will cause a problem. I feel that if you look, there has been technological change happening over decades and centuries, and every new major technological breakthrough that happens, there is a fear that jobs will get lost. But in fact, as you build skills towards newer and newer technologies, it only adds to potential jobs. It's only the reskilling that becomes very important, which we have to be right on top of. So in my view, AI is not a threat. I mean, a lot of concern about coders, for example, getting threatened with AI, but I think it'll make their lives more efficient. And you can't you still need the coding skill, for example, if you, even though you may use AI.
Absolutely. To extract the best out of an AI engine, you also need great prompt engineering skills. So skills change and you have to continuously adapt yourself. Time for just a couple of quick interventions before I thank you and get other guests on the show. Harsha, I come to you on the point of deregulation. If deregulation is part of the reform package statement that is likely, which parts of the economy and our companies will, according to you, benefit the most? Will it be the small and medium scale enterprises that can therefore benefit if deregulation begins in some form or the other?
I think overall it will have an impact on everyone. Yes, certainly it will have a major impact on the SMEs, no doubt about that. But even it will have a larger impact on the corporate India, because what we need is the governance, because there is so much of regulation. So how do we improve on that? How do we make the ease of doing business for the corporates? So from that perspective, it will help, I think, across, to the SMEs, large corporates, everyone.
Okay, Anant, one of the points that industry has consistently been talking about is taking a look at the manner in which certain sectors of the economy face constraints. I'll just give you an example to take this point forward. There are multiple regulations when it comes to municipal laws. There are other regulations on town and country planning. For labor, union codes, factories, contract labor laws, and then many others. Is this where the maximum effort should go in, and will that really help unleash the entrepreneurial spirit of Indians through all the companies that seek to make a difference?
No, I'm in absolute agreement. I think there is a lot of good work that has happened at a central level to make life easier. But we do see on the ground, when it really comes to setting up a factory, when it comes to purchasing land, there are still a lot of issues. So Harsh gave the suggestion about center state getting together to make life easier for businesses. And I think that's going to be, or can be, a game changer to make life easy. Exactly what you said. On the ground, a lot of challenges, but good intentions and effort in the center.
Absolutely. Viewers, we've had the FICCI president and the FICCI vice president here, both representing very significant sectors of the economy that they operate in, and their understanding of the ground level sentiment in the economy. Thank you very much for your time with us today. At this stage, let me welcome in Sunil Singhania, the founder of Abacus Asset Manager, one of the best known market voices. Sunil, morning to you, welcome. Let's take a look at the markets as we begin this conversation, and before we deep dive into the budget, just your sense of how the markets are reading today's event. This 1 week we saw a break from the previous 3 weeks, at least some amount of green coming back in significant manner. What's your sense, Sunil?
Good morning, Siddharth, and thanks for having me. Good morning to everyone. So obviously, as you rightly said, I think January has been a period of challenges and a period full of news flow. So we have had multiple news flow coming in from particularly the US, just pre and post Trump being sworn in terms of, safeguard duties and so on and so forth. And as a result of which we have seen wide swings in currencies, to some extent in metals, risk on, risk off. In between, we had this Chinese AI company causing disruptions in particularly the technology space. And in India, I think what we have seen is, a little bit of apprehensions, particularly related to the valuations. The earnings season did not start as well, though luckily last few days have been pretty decent. And I think there was generally a little bit of nervousness, and that's what got reflected in the market, particularly the broader markets. As you rightly said, the last 1 week has been a little bit more reassuring. In fact, for the month of January, Nifty is hardly down 1-2%. Broader markets obviously are down a little bit more, the extent of 8-10%, but they went up also well. And then now we have the big event which is slated today. The good thing is that in the run-up to the event, there was already so much nervousness that normally the expectation built up and the positioning built up on the positive side, which we see in the run-up to the budget, is completely missing this time. And I think that makes us a little bit more optimistic, even for the near term, that if nothing negative happens, and in fact, if there is something positive which might come out of the announcements, then the market positioning is so light that you might have a near-term bump up. Having said that, I think this is a year which is going to be a year of consolidation. That is what our view is. And returns, we are always optimistic, but returns will be much more moderate than they used to be in the last 3-4 years. And I think that is the narrative which we've been giving for the last 6-9 months.
The global picture, Sunil, continues to send signals of volatility. Just hours before our budget, President Trump has initiated the tariff cycle that he has been threatening and talking about for many, many months now. That first round happening. There is also a threat for imposing tariffs on pharma that may pan out very, very soon. Taking that as the point, what would you say is important for the markets? This kind of a global cue or domestic cues that will emerge, including from the budget and hopefully with monetary policy action in the near future?
So, we are a very interesting economy. We have a lot of sectors and companies which are, domestic focused or domestic facing. But we also have a reasonable number of sectors and companies which are dependent on exports. And particularly the sector you mentioned, pharma, I think is predominantly dependent on US for our exports.
Yes.
Again, I think Trump has been making a lot of statements and he's been a very aggressive leader even in the earlier term. And last 4 years when he was not in power, obviously he had a little bit of angst. And once he has come back in power, I think the announcements are going to be multiple. Now, announcements are easy to make, but not all announcements can actually translate into to execution. The US will also be cognizant of the fact that putting up safeguard duties is fine. You don't create overnight manufacturing capacities, and particularly in sectors like pharma, it's very, very tough. The other thing is the reason why these sectors went overseas was that the cost of production overseas is a decimal, particularly in pharma, compared to what you do in US. So, it's easy to say that we'll put tariffs on pharma imports, but then, who's going to suffer? It's the customers, the consumers of the US, and the insurance companies are going to suffer. So I think all announcements will not fructify into execution. Our advice has been that let 10, 15 days pass by. I think it's a honeymoon period for Mr. Trump. He's been making a lot of announcements. A lot of announcements may be logical from a country perspective, but as I said, all would not be translated into execution. So, our call has been that don't react on announcements, at least for another 10, 15 days, and then take a very, I would say, patient call.
That's a very important point that you make, Sunil, and I would say, itna dar kyun hai bhai? Because 40 years of outsourcing cannot be reversed in 4 years of President Trump, and he will not get another term, at least as per current US constitutional law and practices. I want to ask you one more point, and then my colleague Shailendra Bhatnagar, who is also coming back into the show, also has a question for you. One of the observations about the slowdown and explanations really, because government spending, election impact is spoken about, that because of lack of decision making during elections, growth went down. I postulate that one of the reasons for the dip in growth is also on account of the RBI clampdown on fintechs, NBFC, and the lending that was happening. Do you agree with that postulation? And therefore, should equal attention to also be paid to the RBI to now step back from some of the harder positions that it has taken on fintech regulation or its concerns around a likely bubble being created?
No, it's logical, but it was necessary also. I think as a regulator, the central bank, the RBI, has a dual responsibility. Obviously, they would like the economy to grow and maintain decent liquidity conditions. And on the other hand, they would also like to ensure that lenders don't go overboard. And then there is a systemic issue in terms of bad assets or NPAs. And I think to that extent, last 1 year, the central bank, the RBI, has been a little bit more strict. And we have seen a few companies also being sort of told to slow down. I think now we have reached a stage where we can't afford, very, very tight liquidity because it's already showing in the consumption pattern. The September GDP numbers fell to less than 6%. And I think for India to become a developed nation or a Viksit nation, we have to grow 6.5%, 7% real and 10% nominal at least for the next 5-7 years.
Okay.
And that I think I I would say that the central bank is already, acknowledging that. We had just a few days back almost 1,50,000 crores liquidity infusion. And I think that also has helped the equity markets this week. And the economic survey also points to the fact that India has to grow at 6.3, 6.4% real, and with a 3.5% deflator, 10% nominal in the next 5-7 years. So we do expect that a balanced approach to ensuring that asset quality is not compromised, but liquidity is also maintained would be the way forward.
Namaste Sunil ji, a very warm welcome, and hello Siddharth. Thank you for having me over. Sunil ji, your view on the rate cuts which might possibly start in the middle of this week via the RBI, and your view on the rupee for this year. There is a lot of body of evidence which suggests that the rupee is still overvalued, and given that background, one really doesn't see foreign institutional investors bringing in fresh money.
I'm not an expert on both the subjects you touched upon, but I'll just give you my view as a financial sort of overseer. I would say on the interest rate front, this infusion of 1.5 lakh crores of liquidity by the RBI has already resulted in 10-year G-Sec yields fall to around 6.65%.
Correct.
I would say that the markets would be waiting for the today's budget announcements before taking a call there, because if everyone wants the government to focus on growth and capital expenditure. But at the same time, we also have to be cognizant of the fact of maintaining our fiscal prudence, which is a direction which the government and the RBI has given from time to time, including the finance minister in a last speech. So if we are able to maintain the fiscal deficit number, and if the borrowing plan is not significantly different from what the people are expecting, then the 10-year G-Sec yields might stabilize at these levels. And then there is a possibility that the central bank, maybe in February or the announcement after that, might look at rate cut. The only joker in the pack is obviously in the US. After the initial rate cuts, things were expected to be again moving towards rate cuts, but now the narrative is completely changed. And though we are not one-on-one linked, I think every country looks upon the leader, which is the US, to give some direction. So I would say I don't know whether it will be in February or not, but given what is happening, I think rate cuts in the current calendar year look very, very imminent. On the currency, I think rupee has been relatively stable compared to the other currencies. So in fact, if you see the last 3-4 months, rupee has appreciated against the pound, the euro, all other major currencies. Yes, we depreciated 1% in January, but now with Trump also talking about producing more oil prices have from $80 have reacted to $75. And if there is a little bit more correction there, and hopefully the foreign outflows get converted into inflows, then the rupee should stabilize. So our view is a little bit more constructive on the rupee. Even if it doesn't appreciate, we don't see too much room for it to depreciate further.
Right, Sunil, thanks very much for your time with us today. Our viewers will continue our coverage. Just to recap some of the key headlines that we have in terms of what's likely and what's not from the budget. Around 10 odd minutes left, in fact 13 by one watch for the parliament session to begin. But Shell, before we go into some of the key market indices as well, on the issue of capital gains tax rejig, it seems by various reports that no change is on the cards in this budget. The second point, Shell, why don't you take that point? If there's no capital gains tax rejig, what is the sentiment play out going to be?
Siddharth, I don't think so that the market will be looking for a flip-flop. You increase it 1 year and then you pull it back the next year only to put it back a year later. I think the key that the market is looking forward to is changes in tax rates on the personal income tax front, and therefore you see this rally which is happening in broadly but specifically in some parts of the market which are clued into this space. Look at how the FMCG index is performing since yesterday, when the Prime Minister said that I am praying to Goddess Lakshmi to bestow her blessings on the poor and the middle class. The FMCG index for the moment is flat, but yesterday it jumped fairly wildly. Ditto for the auto space. This is where disposable income typically goes in. 0.5% higher today, almost 23,000 on the Nifty auto index. My view is that you will see some extra money coming in the hands of customers, potential customers. And another thing that I am observing is that SIPs may slow down. So the 40,000 crores that you are seeing coming in the market because of the trimming that we've seen from the top, you just might see the inflows tapering off, and that money being used either to buy new stuff or maybe a different form of savings.
Okay, some more bits really that are being picked up, viewers, and before we get into domestic cues, I also want to take something that's been panning out as far as the international situation is concerned. Mr. Trump, President Trump has now indicated fresh tariff impositions, and remember, this had been said by the President and that action was taken. He is now threatened tariffs against the European Union once again, says the US has been treated very, very horribly. And remember, the first of that action panned out, that impacted US markets. This was the imposition of tariffs on two countries as well as the pharma sector. Shall let's try and bring up the pharma stocks for a moment, and I want to ask you if there would be tariffs on pharma, what kind of impact will it have on Indian companies, because we have significant exposure to the US market. That remains the world's largest healthcare market, and our companies are also pretty decently exposed there.
Absolutely. Anywhere between 50 to 60% of the turnover of top 5 pharma companies comes from the US geography, and Siddharth, they'll be very badly hit. The market has already taken cognizance of this particular potential disruptor. If you look at the pharma index over the last 10 trading sessions, you will see a fairly decent correction, and if you look at it from the point of view of the last 4-5 months, you will see that the pharma index was the top performer. It was providing support to the market when the broader market was falling. So pharma and IT were one of the biggest beneficiaries of the uptick that we saw over the last 6 odd months or so. Now, with that background in mind, I would imagine that there would be very strong negotiations on by the government on behalf of pharma companies. If you remember, Siddharth, these 20,000 illegal Indians which the US is trying to send back to India, India has accepted them without a murmur, unlike Colombia. So the government of the day is cognizant of the fact that a lot of business risks are at play, and they must do all that they can to keep Mr. Trump happy.
That's very important, and I am reading at this stage and step in on that as well. Shankar Sharma, this is a story on businesstoday.in. Viewers, do log in immediately. Ace investor Shankar Sharma has questioned the economy's health after his view on a near empty Friday night in Mumbai. Viewers, log in to businesstoday.in. You have that story there. And he said, last night I went to a very happening nightclub rooftop lounge in Bombay, as he calls it. Friday night should have been packed, was just around 30% full. Monday. Now that's a tweet that he has made, and perhaps in some ways, Shell, bringing up that debate about whether it's a cyclical slowdown, whether it's a structural slowdown, and we have had various views on that matter. But what's your own sense regarding the economy? Capacity utilization not fully there, corporate earnings we have seen the kind that are coming through. What's your own sense, Shell?
Siddharth, I think that he didn't take two of us along, and that's the reason why he didn't get the right crowd. But Shankar will be joining us at 1:15 p.m. today. I'll ask it straight off the lion himself, and then give you the correct response. I think maybe Shankar, in his wisdom, chose a bar
Did
where
he go to
they
the
were
wrong place? Did he go to the wrong place?
well, you said it, I didn't want to say. And he,
Maybe a far too expensive place, given Shankar's wealth. Very
Yeah.
clearly, it seems he might have gone somewhere.
and
else.
all his friends who used to frequent that bar were actually partying in Davos.
Yeah. You know, Arvind Subramaniam, former CA, has also weighed in, and that is also part of the story that I'm referring to you viewers. He said in a recent interaction, whether the economy is slowing down, the answer to this is absolutely yes. And he says that the slowdown is not just a cyclical blip, but a deeper structural issue. Now, if you take a look at the overall numbers, viewers, it's very clear that growth is declining, and if you take a different view of our economy, 60% of our GDP is on account of personal spending. 30% is on account of what we called asset formation. 10% is government spending. For years now, the government has done as much spending as it could have under that title of capital expenditure, but there are limits. The government has to borrow to continue to finance both its revenue expenditure and what we would say in terms of creating assets, the capital expenditure that it is doing, but there are limitations. Therefore, the big thing really in response to this slowdown has to be some sort of incentivization of that 60% of our GDP, because growth will create jobs and countermand the effects of artificial intelligence on jobs. The economic survey has also held that warning out. Shall, at this stage, around 5 minutes left for the Lok Sabha to convene, and we hope the proceedings there can get off very quickly. There is another observation that a colleague has sent on this Shankar Sharma tweet, which is the DLF mall also, according to one colleague who visited it, I don't know how he found time on a Friday night before the budget, but regardless, he also felt that it was far less crowded, nearer to empty than usual. So I don't know whether these anecdotal observations actually qualify for a major impact, but at this stage, take a look at the markets for us, Shell, and take our viewers through what minutes before the budget seems to be happening.
So first, a comment on the bar, Siddharth. One thing is for sure, he should have dialed either you or me, and we should have chaperoned him to the right bar, just as he does when I am in Dubai. So that's one point I'd like to make. And I think there is a case of a wide spectrum relief that people need, and middle classes in particular, who pay the taxes but they don't get the benefits of cheaper food and other goodies that are handed out by the political parties to win elections. So that needs to come, and Siddharth, it's amply evident by the market.
Well, there is some source-based news at this stage which can provide us some hints. India Today network has learnt from sources that Prime Minister Modi told his cabinet colleagues that this budget is for the common man, that this is a budget of the aspirations of poor farmers, women and youth, that this is a budget of knowledge, again targeted towards these segments of the society. There are other inputs really, but Shell, the Prime Minister triggered significant amount of hope by his comment yesterday at the beginning of the session about the middle class as well as the poor. The middle class in focus, but a lot of experts seems to be suggesting that the government really doesn't have that much scope to do much. You buy into that view?
No, Siddharth. I think tax revenues have been buoyant, and more than their fair share have been coming in from the middle class. It's time that some relief is advocated. See, there are two report cards that the BJP is observing. One is the political report card, in which they are winning left, right and centre, and that perhaps gives them hope that their aggressive tax collection regime is not making that much of a dent into middle class incomes. But you know it, I know it. If upper middle class homes such as yours and ours are impacted, look at our kitchen bills. They've soared by about 2x over the last 3.5 years. Forget about lower income levels. They are very, very badly hurt. But the fact is that they are benefited by all the political freebies that are handed out.
Okay, more inputs from sources, and mind you viewers, this is just source based. We're just trying to give you a sense of what we are gathering. You will have to actually tune into the specifics of the speech. In terms of the fiscal deficit trajectory, the fact that the 4.5% number outlined for FY26, that is likely to be reiterated. There is, according to sources, the possibility of measures to increase consumption and announcements that, as sources say, to provide more money in the hands of people. Now we can debate what that will be. There is a clear hint that the new tax regime, which is the near zero exemption scheme, may get further incentivized. The likelihood of the old tax regime being tweaked in favor of salaried taxpayers, for example, or other income taxpayers is unlikely. There's also some sense that there might be a broad statement on GST, because remember, the GST is a federal council, center and states together take decisions and also don't take decisions, for example, on the proposals and recommendations to lower the impact, for example, on health insurance premium GST. So the fiscal deficit trajectory being reiterated, and also talking about the major challenges, including lower growth, the challenge from overseas, including the United States, as well as what external factors can buffet the Indian economy. But the big picture, as we count down minutes to the budget, and there you have live visuals. Let's go full screen. That's the Lok Sabha speaker coming in, and we are now likely to see the finance minister start with her 8th budget speech.
सदस्यगण, बजट के बाद राज्यपाल अभिभाषण में आपको पर्याप्त अवसर दूंगा। मेरा आपसे निवेदन है, नहीं माननीय अखिलेश जी, आपने संसद की मर्यादा को आप बना के रखें। कभी बजट भाषण के अंदर इस तरीके का नहीं हुआ, ये उचित नहीं है, ये उचित नहीं है। अखिलेश जी प्लीज, मैं आपको मौका दूंगा राज्यपाल अभिभाषण पे, प्लीज। नो, ये तरीका ठीक नहीं है। नो, राज्यपाल अभिभाषण पे चर्चा होगी। नो तरीका।
Honorable Speaker, I present the budget for 25-26. This budget continues our government's efforts to A. Accelerate growth, B. Secure inclusive development, C. Invigorate private sector investments, D. Uplift household sentiments, and E. Enhance spending power of India's rising middle class. Together, we embark on a journey to unlock our nation's tremendous potential for greater prosperity and global positioning under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. As we complete the first quarter of the 21st century, continuing geopolitical headwinds suggest lower global economic growth over the medium term. However, our aspiration for a Vikasit Bharat inspires us, and the transformative work we have done during our government's first 2 terms guides us to march forward resolutely. Our economy is the fastest growing among all major economies. Our development track record for the past 10 years and structural reforms have drawn global attention. Confidence in India's capability and potential has only grown in this period. We see the next 5 years as a unique opportunity to realize Sabka Vikas, stimulating balanced growth of all regions. The great Telugu poet and playwright Gurujada Apparao had said, "Deshamante matti kadoy, deshamante manushuloy," meaning a country is not just its soil, a country is its people. In line with this, for us, Vikasit Bharat encompasses zero poverty, 100% quality good school education, access to high quality, affordable and comprehensive health care, 100% skilled labor with meaningful employment, 70% women in economic activities, and farmers making our country the food basket of the world. In this budget, the proposed development measures span 10 broad areas, focusing on Garib, youth, Annadata, and Nari, spurring agricultural growth and productivity, building rural prosperity and resilience, taking everyone together on an inclusive growth path, boosting manufacturing and furthering Make in India, supporting MSMEs, enabling employment-led development, investing in people, economy, and innovation, securing energy supplies, promoting exports, and nurturing innovation. For this journey of development, our 4 powerful engines are agriculture, MSME, investments, and exports. The fuel, our reforms, our guiding spirit, inclusivity, and the destination, Vikasit Bharat. This budget aims to initiate transformative reforms across 6 domains. During the first 5 years, these will augment our growth potential and global competitiveness. The domains are taxation, power sector, urban development, mining, financial sector, and regulatory reforms. Agriculture as the first engine. Now I move to specific proposals, beginning with agriculture as the first engine. Prime Minister Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana, developing agri-districts program. Motivated by the success of the aspirational district program, our government will undertake a Prime Minister Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana in partnership with states. Through the convergence of existing schemes and specialized measures, the program will cover 100 districts with low productivity, moderate crop intensity, and below average credit parameters. It aims to 1. Enhance agricultural productivity, 2. Adopt crop diversification and sustainable agricultural practices, 3. Augment post-harvest storage at the panchayat and block level, 4. Improve irrigation facilities, and 5. Facilitate availability of long-term and short-term credit. This program is likely to help 1.7 crore farmers. Building rural prosperity and resilience. A comprehensive multi-sectoral rural prosperity and resilience program will be launched in partnership with the states. This will address underemployment in agriculture through skilling, investment, technology, and invigorating the rural economy. The goal is to generate ample opportunities in rural areas so that migration is an option but not a necessity. The program will focus on rural women, young farmers, rural youth, marginal and small farmers, and landless families. The details are in Annexure A. Domestic best practices will be incorporated and appropriate technical and financial assistance will be sought from multilateral development banks. In phase 1, 100 developing agri-districts will be covered. Atmanirbharta in pulses. Our government is implementing the National Mission for Edible Oilseed for achieving Atmanirbharta in edible oils. Our farmers have the capability to grow enough for our needs and more. 10 years ago, we made concerted efforts and succeeded in achieving near self-sufficiency in pulses. Farmers responded to the need by increasing the cultivated area by 50%, and government arranged for procurement and remunerative prices. Since then, with rising incomes and better affordability, our consumption of pulses has increased significantly. Our government will now launch a 6-year mission for Atmanirbharta in pulses with a special focus on Tur, Urad and Masoor. Details are in Annexure B. Central agencies such as NAFED and NCCF will be ready to procure these 3 pulses as much as offered during the next 4 years from farmers who register with these agencies and enter into agreements. Comprehensive program for vegetables and fruits. It is encouraging that our people are increasingly becoming aware of their nutritional needs. It is a sign of a society becoming healthier. With rising income levels, the consumption of vegetables, fruits, and Sri Anna is increasing significantly. A comprehensive program to promote production, efficient supplies, processing, and remunerative prices for farmers will be launched in partnership with the states. Appropriate institutional mechanisms for implementation and participation of farmer producer organizations and cooperatives will be set up. Makhana board in Bihar. For this, there is a special opportunity for the people of Bihar. A Makhana board will be established in the state to improve production, processing, value addition, and marketing of Makhana. The people engaged in these activities will be organized into FPOs. The board will provide hand-holding and training support to Makhana farmers and will also work to ensure they receive the benefits of all relevant government schemes. A national mission on high-yielding seeds will be launched, aimed at 1. Strengthening research ecosystem, 2. Targeted development and propagation of seeds with high yield, pest resistance, and climate resilience, and 3. Commercial availability of more than 100 seed varieties released since July 2024. India ranks 2nd largest globally in fish production and aquaculture. Seafood exports are valued at 60,000 crore rupees. To unlock the untapped potential of the marine sector, our government will bring in an enabling framework for sustainable harnessing of fisheries from Indian exclusive economic zone and high seas, with a special focus on the Andaman and Nicobar and Lakshadweep Islands. For the benefit of lakhs of cotton growing farmers, I am pleased to announce a mission for cotton productivity. This 5-year mission will facilitate significant improvements in productivity and sustainability of cotton farming and promote extra long staple cotton varieties. The best of science and technology support will be provided to farmers. Aligned with our integrated 5F vision for the textile sector, this will help in increasing incomes of the farmers and ensure a steady supply of quality cotton for rejuvenating India's traditional textile sector. Kisan credit cards facilitate short-term loans for 7.7 crore farmers, fishermen, and dairy farmers. The loan limit under modified interest subvention scheme will be enhanced from 3 lakh rupees to 5 lakh rupees for loans taken through the KCC. For Atmanirbharta in urea production, our government had reopened 3 dormant urea plants in the eastern region. To further augment urea supply, a plant with annual capacity of 12.7 lakh metric tons will be set up at Namrup in Assam. India Post, with 1.5 lakh rural post offices, complemented by the India Post Payment Bank and a vast network of 2.4 lakh Dak Sevaks, will be repositioned to act as a catalyst for the rural economy. Details are at Annexure C. India Post will also be transformed as a large public logistics organization. This will meet the rising needs of Vishwakarmas, new entrepreneurs, women, self-help groups, MSMEs, and the large business organizations. Our government will provide support to NCDC for its lending operations for the cooperative sector. MSMEs as the second engine. Now I move to MSMEs as the second engine, which encompasses manufacturing and services with a focus on MSMEs numbering 5.7 crores. Currently, over 1 crore registered MSMEs, employing 7.5 crore people and generating 36% of our manufacturing, have come together to position India as a global manufacturing hub. With their quality products, these MSMEs are responsible for 45% of our exports. To help them achieve higher efficiencies of scale, technological upgradation, and better access to capital, the investment and turnover limits for classification of all MSMEs will be enhanced to 2.5 and 2 times respectively. This will give them the confidence to grow and generate employment for our youth. The details are given in Annexure D. To improve access to credit, the credit guarantee cover will be enhanced. First, for micro and small enterprises from 5 crore to 10 crore rupees, leading to additional credit of 1.5 lakh crores in the next 5 years. Second, for startups from 10 crore rupees to 20 crore rupees, with the guarantee fee being moderated to 1% for loans in 27 focus sectors which are important for Atmanirbhar Bharat. And for well-run exporter MSMEs, for term loans up to 20 crore rupees. Also for the micro enterprises, we will introduce customized credit cards with a 5 lakh rupee limit for micro enterprises registered on Udyam portal. In the first year, 10 lakh such cards will be issued. Fund of funds for startups. The Alternate Investment Fund, AIFs, for startups have received commitments of more than 91,000 crores rupees. These are supported by the fund of funds set up with the Government of India's contribution of 10,000 crore rupees. Now, a new fund of funds with expanded scope and a fresh contribution of another 10,000 crore rupees will be set up. A new scheme will be launched for 5 lakh women, scheduled castes, and scheduled tribes, first-time entrepreneurs. This will provide term loans up to 2 crore rupees during the next 5 years. The scheme will incorporate lessons from the successful Stand Up India scheme. Online capacity building for entrepreneurship and managerial skills will also be organized. Measures for labor-intensive sectors. To promote employment and entrepreneurship opportunities in labor-intensive sectors, our government will undertake specific policy and facilitation measures. To enhance the productivity, quality, and competitiveness of India's footwear and leather sector, a focused product scheme will be implemented. The scheme will support design capacity, component manufacturing, and machinery required for production of non-leather quality footwear, besides the support for leather footwear and products. The scheme is expected to facilitate employment for 22 lakh persons, generate over 4 lakh crore rupees, and exports of over 1.1 lakh crore rupees. Measures for the toys sector. Building on the National Action Plan for Toys, we will implement a scheme to make India a global hub for toys. The scheme will focus on development of clusters, skills, and a manufacturing ecosystem that will create high-quality, unique, innovative, and sustainable toys that will represent the Made in India brand. Support for food processing. In line with our commitment towards Purvodaya, we will establish a National Institute of Food Technology, Entrepreneurship, and Management in Bihar. The institute will provide a strong fillip to food processing activities in the entire eastern region. This will result in 1. Enhanced income for the farmers through value addition to their produce, and 2. Skilling entrepreneurship and employment opportunities for the youth. Manufacturing mission, furthering Make in India. Our government will set up a national manufacturing mission covering small, medium, and large industries for furthering Make in India by providing policy support, execution roadmaps, governance, and monitoring framework for central ministries and states. Details are in Annexure E. Given our commitment to climate-friendly development, the mission will also support clean tech manufacturing. This will aim to improve domestic value addition and build our ecosystem for solar PV cells, EV batteries, motors and controllers, electrolyzers, wind turbines, very high voltage transmission equipment, and grid-scale batteries. Investment as the third engine. Now I move to investment as the third engine, which encompasses investing in people, investing in the economy, and investing in innovation. Investing in people. Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan 2.0. Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan 2.0 program provides nutritional support to more than 8 crore children, 1 crore pregnant women and lactating mothers all over the country, and about 20 lakh adolescent girls in aspirational districts and the Northeast region. The cost norms for these nutritional support will be enhanced appropriately. Atal Tinkering Labs. 50,000 Atal Tinkering Labs will be set up in government schools in the next 5 years to cultivate the spirit of curiosity and innovation and foster a scientific temper among young minds. Broadband connectivity to government secondary schools and PHCs. Broadband connectivity will be provided to all government secondary schools and primary health centers in rural areas under the BharatNet project. Bharatiya Bhasha Pustak Scheme. We propose to implement a Bharatiya Bhasha Pustak scheme to provide digital form Indian language books for schools and for higher education. This aims to help students understand their subjects better and in their language. National Centers of Excellence for Skilling. The initiative announced in the July 24 budget. 5 national centers of excellence for skilling will be set up with global expertise and partnerships to equip our youth with the skills required for Make for India, Make for the World manufacturing. The partnership will cover curriculum design, training of trainers, and a skills certification framework and periodic reviews. Expansion of capacity in IITs. Total number of students in 23 IITs has increased 100% from 65,000 to 1.35 lakh in the past 10 years. Additional infrastructure will be created in the 5 IITs started after 2014 to facilitate education for 6,500 more students. Hostel and other infrastructure capacity at IIT Patna will also be expanded. Center of Excellence. Center of Excellence in AI for Education. I had announced 3 centers of excellence in artificial intelligence for agriculture, health, and sustainable cities in 2023. Now a center of excellence in artificial intelligence for education will be set up with a total outlay of 500 crores. Expansion of medical education. Our government has added almost 1.1 lakh undergraduate and postgraduate medical education seats in 10 years, an increase of 130%. In the next year, 10,000 additional seats will be added in medical colleges and hospitals towards the goal of adding 75,000 seats in the next 5 years. Daycare cancer centers in all district hospitals. Our government will facilitate setting up of daycare cancer centers in all district hospitals in the next 3 years. 200 centers will be established in 25-26 itself. Strengthening urban livelihoods. Our government has been giving priority to assisting urban poor and vulnerable groups. A scheme for socio-economic upliftment of urban workers will be implemented to help them improve their incomes, have sustainable livelihoods, and a better quality of life. PM Swanidhi scheme has benefited more than 68 lakh street vendors, giving them respite from high-interest informal sector loans. Building on this success, the scheme will be revamped with enhanced loans from banks, UPI-linked credit cards with 30,000 rupees limit, and capacity building support. Social Security scheme for welfare of online platform workers. Gig workers of online platforms provide dynamism to the new age services economy. Recognizing their contribution, our government will arrange for their identity cards and registration on the e-Shram portal. They will be provided health care under PM Jan Arogya Yojana. This measure is likely to assist nearly 1 crore gig workers. Investing in the economy. Public-private partnership in infrastructure. Each infrastructure-related ministry will come up with a 3-year pipeline of projects that can be implemented in PPP mode. States will also be encouraged to do so. and can seek support from the India Infrastructure Project Development Fund, which is a scheme to prepare PPP proposals. Support to states for infrastructure. An outlay of 1.5 lakh crore is proposed for the 50-year interest-free loans to states for capital expenditure and incentives for reforms. Building on the success of the first asset monetization plan announced in 2021, the second plan for 2025 to 30 will be launched to plow back capital of 10 lakh crore in new projects. Regulatory and fiscal measures will be fine-tuned to support the plan. Jal Jeevan Mission. Since 2019, 15 crore households representing 80% of India's rural population have been provided access to portable tap water connections. To achieve 100% coverage, I am pleased to announce the extension of this mission until 2028 with an enhanced total outlay. The mission's focus will be on the quality of infrastructure and O&M of rural piped water supply schemes through Jan Bhagidari. A separate MOU or separate MOUs will be signed with the states and union territories to ensure sustainability and citizen-centric water services delivery. Urban sector reforms. Building on the July budget proposals, urban sector reforms related to governance, municipal services, urban land and planning will be incentivized. Urban Challenge Fund. The government will set up an urban challenge fund of 1 lakh crore rupees to implement the proposals for cities as growth hubs, creative redevelopment of cities, and for water and sanitation purposes announced in the July budget. This fund will finance up to 25% of the cost of bankable projects, with a stipulation that at least 50% of the cost is funded from bonds, bank loans, and PPPs. An allocation of 10,000 crore is proposed in 2025-26. Power sector reforms. We will incentivize electricity distribution reforms and augmentation of intra-state transmission capacity by states. This will improve financial health and capacity of electricity companies. Additional borrowing of 0.5% of GSDP will be allowed to states contingent on these reforms. Nuclear energy mission for Vikasit Bharat. Development of at least 100 gigawatt of nuclear energy by 2047 is essential for our energy transition efforts. For an active partnership with the private sector towards this goal, amendments to the Atomic Energy Act and the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act will be taken up. A nuclear energy mission for research and development of small modular reactors with an outlay of 20,000 crore will be set up. At least 5 indigenously developed small modular reactors will be operationalized by 2033. Shipbuilding. The shipbuilding financial assistance policy will be revamped to address cost disadvantages. This will also include credit notes for shipbreaking in Indian yards to promote the circular economy. Large ships above a specified size will be included in the infrastructure harmonized master list. Shipbuilding clusters will be facilitated to increase the range, categories, and capacity of ships. This will include additional infrastructure, facilities, skilling, and technology to develop the entire ecosystem. Maritime Development Fund For long-term financing for the maritime industry, a maritime development fund with a corpus of 25,000 crore rupees will be set up. This will be for distributed support and promoting competition. This will have up to 49% contribution by the government, and the balance will be mobilized from ports and from private sector. Udan regional connectivity schemes. Udan has enabled 1.5 crore middle-class people to meet their aspirations for speedier travel. The scheme has connected 88 airports, and operationalized 619 routes. Inspired by that success, a modified Udan scheme will be launched to enhance regional connectivity to 120 new destinations and carry 4 crore passengers in the next 10 years. 4 crore additional passengers in the next 10 years. The scheme will also support helipads and smaller airports in hilly, aspirational and northeast regional districts. Greenfield airports will be facilitated in Bihar to meet the future needs of the state. These will be in addition to the expansion of the capacity of Patna Airport and a brownfield airport in Beta. Western Kosi Canal project in Mithilanchal. Financial support will be provided for the Western Kosi Canal ERM project, benefiting a large number of farmers cultivating over 50,000 hectares of land in the Mithilanchal region of Bihar. Mining sector reforms. Mining sector reforms, including those for minor minerals, will be encouraged through sharing of best practices and institutions of a state mining index. A policy for recovery of critical minerals from tailings will be brought out. Under the special window for affordable and mid-income housing, SWAMI, 50,000 dwelling units in stressed housing projects have been completed and keys handed over to home buyers. Another 40,000 units will be completed in 2025, further helping middle-class families who were paying EMIs on loans taken for apartments while also paying rent for their current dwellings. Building on this success, SWAMI Fund 2 will be established as a blended finance facility with contribution from the government, banks and private investors. This fund of 15,000 crore rupees will aim for expeditious completion of another 1 lakh units. PM Gati Shakti data for private sector. For furthering PPPs and assisting the private sector in project planning, access to relevant data and maps from the PM Gati Shakti portal will be provided. Tourism for employment-led growth. Top 50 tourist destination sites in the country will be developed in partnership with states through a challenge mode. Land for building key infrastructure will have to be provided by the states. Hotels in these destinations will be included in the infrastructure harmonized list. The following measures will be taken for facilitating employment-led growth. Organizing intensive skill development programs for our youth, including in institutes of hospitality management. Providing mudra loans for homestays. Improving ease of travel and connectivity to tourist destinations. Providing performance-linked incentives to states for effective destination management including tourist amenities, cleanliness, and marketing efforts, and introducing streamlined e-visa facilities along with visa fee waivers for certain tourist groups. Continuing with the emphasis on places of spiritual and religious significance in the July budget, there will be a special focus on destinations related to the life and times of Lord Buddha. Medical tourism and heal in India. Medical tourism and heal in India will be promoted in partnership with the private sector along with capacity building and easier visa norms. Investing in innovation. To implement private sector-driven research, development, and innovation initiatives announced in the July budget, I am now allocating 20,000 crore rupees for this purpose. A deep tech fund of funds will also be explored to catalyze the next generation startups as a part of this initiative. In the next 5 years, under the PM Research Fellowship Scheme, we will provide 10,000 fellowships for technological research in IITs and IISc with enhanced financial support. The second gene bank with 10 lakh germ plasm lines will be set up for future food and nutritional security. This will provide conservation support to both public and private sectors for genetic resources. We will start a national geospatial mission to develop foundational geospatial infrastructure and data. Using PM Gati Shakti, this mission will facilitate modernization of land records, urban planning, and design of infrastructure projects. A Gyan Bharatam mission for survey, documentation, and conservation of our manuscript heritage with academic institutions, museums, libraries, and private collectors will be undertaken to cover more than 1 crore manuscripts. We will set up a national digital repository of Indian knowledge systems for knowledge sharing. Now I move to exports as the fourth engine. We will set up an export promotion mission with sectoral and ministerial targets driven jointly by the Ministries of Commerce, MSME, and Finance. It will facilitate easy access to export credit, cross-border factoring support, support to MSMEs to tackle non-tariff measures in overseas markets. A digital public infrastructure, Bharat Trade Net, for international trade will be set up as a unified platform for trade documentation and financing solutions. This will complement the Unified Logistics Interface platform. The BTN will be aligned with international practices. Support will be provided to develop domestic manufacturing capacities for our economy's integration with global supply chains. Sectors will be identified based on objective criteria. Facilitation groups with participation of senior officers and industry representatives will be formed for select products and supply chains. Through this, there are huge opportunities related to Industry 4.0, which needs high skills and talent. Our youth have both. Our government will support the domestic electronic equipment industry to leverage this opportunity for the benefit of our youth. A national framework will be formulated as guidance to states for promoting global capability centers in emerging Tier 2 cities. This will suggest measures for enhancing availability of talent and infrastructure, building bylaw reforms, and mechanisms for collaboration with industry. Our government will facilitate upgradation of infrastructure and warehousing for air cargo, including high-value perishable horticultural produce. Cargo screening and customs protocol will be streamlined and made user-friendly. Reforms as the fuel. Over the past 10 years, our government has implemented several reforms for convenience of taxpayers, such as faceless assessment, 2, taxpayer charter, 3, faster returns, 4, almost 99% returns being on self-assessment, and 5, Vivad Se Vishwas scheme. Continuing these efforts, I reaffirm the commitment of the Tax Department to trust first, scrutinize later. I also propose to introduce the new income tax bill next week. I will detail the indirect tax reforms and changes in direct taxes in Part B. Financial sector reforms. The FDI limit for the insurance sector will be raised from 74 to 100%. This enhanced limit will be available for those companies which invest the entire premium in India. The current guardrails and conditionalities associated with foreign investment will be reviewed and simplified. The services of India Post Payment Bank will be deepened and expanded in rural areas. NABFID will set up a partial credit enhancement facility for corporate bonds for infrastructure. Public sector banks will develop Grameen Credit Score Framework to serve the credit needs of SHG members and people in rural areas. A forum for regulatory coordination and development of pension products will be set up. To implement the earlier announcement on simplifying the KYC processes, the revamped Central KYC Registry will be rolled out in 2025. We will also implement a streamlined system for periodic updating. Requirements and procedures for speedy approval of company mergers will be rationalized. The scope for fast-track mergers will also be widened and the process made simpler. As proposed in the interim budget, we signed bilateral investment treaties with 2 countries in 2024 to encourage sustained foreign investment, and in the spirit of First Develop India, the current model BIT will be revamped and made more investor-friendly. In the last 10 years, in several aspects, including financial and non-financial, our government has demonstrated a steadfast commitment to ease of doing business. We are determined to ensure that our regulations must keep up with technological innovations and global policy developments. A light-touch regulatory framework based on principles and trust will unleash productivity and employment. Through this framework, we will update regulations that were made under old laws. To develop this modern, flexible, people-friendly, and trust-based regulatory framework appropriate for the 21st century, I propose 4 specific measures. A high-level committee for regulatory reforms will be set up for a review of all non-financial sector regulations, certifications, licenses, and permissions. The committee will be expected to make recommendations within a year. The objective is to strengthen trust-based economic governance and take transformational measures to enhance ease of doing business, especially in matters of inspection and compliances. States will be encouraged to join in this endeavor. An investment friendliness index of states will be launched in 2025 to further the spirit of competitive, cooperative federalism. Under the Financial Stability and Development Council, a mechanism will be set up to to evaluate impact of the current financial regulations and subsidiary instructions. It will also formulate a framework to enhance their responsiveness and development of the financial sector. In the Jan Vishwas Act 2023, more than 180 legal provisions were decriminalized. Our government will now bring up the Jan Vishwas Bill 2.0 to decriminalize more than 100 provisions in various laws. I now move to fiscal policy. In the July budget, I had committed to staying the course for fiscal consolidation. Our endeavor will be to keep the fiscal deficit each year such that central government debt remains on a declining path as a percentage of the GDP. The roadmap for the next 6 years has been detailed in the FRBM statement. Revised estimates for 2024-25. The revised estimate of the total receipts other than borrowings is 31.47 lakh crore rupees, of which the net tax receipts are 25.57 lakh crore rupees. The revised estimate of the total expenditure is 47.16 lakh crore rupees, of which the capital expenditure is about 10.18 lakh crore rupees. The revised estimate of the fiscal deficit is 4.8% of the GDP. Budget estimates for 25-26. Coming to 25-26, the total receipts other than borrowings and total expenditure are estimated at 34.96 lakh crore rupees and 50.65 lakh crore rupees respectively. The net tax receipts are estimated at 28.37 lakh crore rupees. The fiscal deficit is estimated to be 4.4% of GDP. To finance the fiscal deficit, the net market borrowings from dated securities are estimated at 11.54 lakh crore. The balance financing is expected to come from small savings and other sources. The gross market borrowings are estimated at 14.82 lakh crore rupees. I will now move to Part B. Indirect taxes. My proposals relating to customs aim to rationalize tariff structure and address duty inversion. These will also support domestic manufacturing and value addition, promote exports, facilitate trade, and provide relief to common people. Rationalization of customs tariff structure for industrial goods. As a part of comprehensive review of customs rate structure announced in July 2024 budget, I propose to 1. Remove 7 tariff rates. This is over and above the 7 tariff rates removed in 23-24 budget. After this, there will be only 8 remaining tariff rates, including 0 rate. 2. Apply appropriate cess to broadly maintain effective duty incidence, except on a few items where such incidence will reduce marginally. 3. Levy not more than 1 cess or surcharge. Therefore, I propose to exempt social welfare surcharge on 82 tariff lines that are subject to a cess. I shall now take up sector-specific proposals. To provide relief to patients, particularly those suffering from cancer, rare diseases, and other severe chronic diseases, I propose to add 36 life-saving drugs and medicines to the list of medicines fully exempted from basic custom duty. I also propose to add 6 life-saving medicines to the list attracting concessional custom duty of 5%. Full exemption and concessional duty will also respectively apply on the bulk drugs for manufacture of the above. Specified drugs and medicines under patient assistance programs run by the pharmaceutical companies are fully exempt from BCD, provided the medicines are supplied free of cost to the patients. I propose to add 37 more medicines along with 13 new patient assistance programs. Support to domestic manufacturing and value addition. Critical minerals. In the July 2024 budget, I had fully exempted BCD on 25 critical minerals that are not domestically available. I had also reduced BCD of 2 other such minerals to provide a major fillip to their processing, especially by MSMEs. Now, I propose to fully exempt cobalt powder and waste, the scrap of lithium-ion battery, lead, zinc, and 12 more critical minerals. This will help secure the availability for manufacturing in India and promote more jobs for our youth. To promote domestic production of technical textile products such as agro-textiles, medical textiles, and geotextiles at competitive prices, I propose to add 2 more types of shuttle-less looms to the list of fully exempted textile machinery. I also propose to revise the BCD rate on knitted fabrics covered by 9 tariff lines from 10 or 20 to 20% or 115 rupees per kg, whichever is higher. Electronic goods. In line with our Make in India policy and to rectify inverted duty structure, I propose to increase the BCD on interactive flat panel display from 10% to 20% and reduce the BCD to 5% on open cell and other components. In 23-24 budget, for the manufacture of open cells of LCD, LED TVs, I had reduced the BCD on parts of open cells from 5% to 2.5%. To further boost the manufacture of such open cells, the BCD on these parts will now stand exempted. Lithium-ion battery. To the list of exempted capital goods, I propose to add 35 additional capital goods for EV battery manufacturing and 28 additional capital goods for mobile phone battery manufacturing. This will boost domestic manufacture of lithium-ion batteries, both for mobile phones and for electric vehicles. Shipping sector. Considering that shipbuilding has a long gestation period, I propose to continue the exemption of BCD on raw materials, components, consumables, or parts for the manufacture of ships for another 10 years. I also propose the same dispensation for shipbreaking to make it more competitive. Telecommunication. To prevent classification disputes, I propose to reduce the BCD from 20% to 10% on carrier-grade Ethernet switches to make it at par with non-carrier-grade Ethernet switches. Export promotion. To facilitate exports of handicrafts, I propose to extend the time period for export from 6 months to 1 year, further extendable by another 3 months if required. I also propose to add 9 items to the list of duty-free inputs. Leather sector. I propose to fully exempt BCD on wet blue leather to facilitate imports for domestic value addition and employment. I also propose to exempt crust leather from 20% export duty to facilitate exports by small tanners. Marine products. To enhance India's competitiveness in the global seafood market, I propose to reduce BCD from 30% to 5% on frozen fish paste, surimi, for manufacture and export of its analog products. I also propose to reduce BCD from 15% to 5% on fish hydrolysates for manufacture of fish and shrimp feed. In July 2024 budget, to promote development of domestic MROs for aircraft and ships, I had extended the time limit for export of foreign origin goods that were imported for repairs from 6 months to 1 year and further extendable by 1 year. I now propose to extend the same dispensation for railway goods. Time limit for provisional assessment. Presently, the Customs Act 1962 does not provide any time limit to finalize provisional assessments, leading to uncertainty and cost to trade. As a measure of promoting ease of doing business, I propose to fix a time limit of 2 years, extendable by a year, for finalizing the provisional assessment. I propose to introduce a new provision that will enable importers or exporters, after clearance of goods, to voluntarily declare material facts and pay duty with interest but without penalty. This will incentivize voluntary compliance. However, this will not apply in cases where department has already initiated audit or investigation proceedings. For industry to better plan their imports, I propose to extend the time limit for the end use of imported inputs in the relevant rules from 6 months to 1 year. This will provide operational flexibility in view of cost and uncertainty of supply. Further, such importers will now have to file only quarterly statements instead of a monthly statement. I now come to my direct tax proposals. In Part A, I have briefly underlined taxation reforms as one of key reforms to realize our vision of Vikasit Bharat. In respect of criminal law, our government had earlier ushered in Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, replacing Bharatiya Danda Sanhita. I am happy to inform this august House and the country that for new income tax bill will carry forward the same spirit of Nyaya in its drafting as well. The new bill will be clear and direct in text, with close to half of the present law in terms of both chapters and words. It will be simple to understand for taxpayers and tax administrators, leading to tax certainty and reduced litigation. Reforms, however, are not a destination. They are means to achieve good governance for our people and economy. Providing good governance primarily involves being responsive. The Tirukural captures this in verse 542, which reads, "Vaanokki vaazhum ulagallam, mannavan kol nokki vaazhum kudi," meaning, just as the living beings live expecting rains, citizens live expecting good governance. Our government is committed to keeping an ear to the ground and a finger on the pulse and responding while balancing our national building efforts. The following measures will detail just how our government will, under the guidance of PM Modi, has taken steps to understand and address. I repeat that sentence, sir. The following measures will detail just how our government, under the guidance of PM Modi, has taken steps to understand and address the needs voiced by our citizens. My tax proposals are guided by this spirit. The objectives of my proposals are as follows. Personal income tax reforms with special focus on middle class. Rationalization of TDS and TCS for easing difficulties. encouraging voluntary compliance, reducing compliance burden, ease of doing business, employment and investment. I will come to my proposal on personal income tax towards the end. TDS and TCS, rationalization for easing difficulties. I propose to rationalize tax deduction at source, TDS, by reducing the number of rates and thresholds above which TDS is deducted. Further, threshold amounts for tax deduction will be increased for better clarity and uniformity. The limit for tax deduction on interest for senior citizens is being doubled from the present 50,000 rupees to 1 lakh rupees. Similarly, the annual limit of 2.40 lakh rupees for TDS on rent is being increased to 6 lakh rupees. This will reduce the number of transactions liable to TDS, thus benefiting small taxpayers receiving small payments. The threshold to collect tax at source, the TCS, on remittances under RBI's liberalized remittance scheme, the LRS, is proposed to be increased from 7 lakh to 10 lakhs. I also propose to remove TCS on remittances for education purposes, where such remittances is out of a loan taken from a specified financial institution. Both TDS and TCS are being applied on any transaction related to sale of goods. To prevent such compliance difficulties, I propose to omit the TCS. I also propose that the provisions of the higher TDS deduction will now apply only in non-PAN cases. In July 2024, the delay for payment of TDS up to the due date of filing statement was decriminalized. I propose to provide the same relaxation to TCS provisions as well. The government under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi believes in Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas and Sabka Prayas. In line with this, we brought in updated return facility in 2022 for voluntary compliance by taxpayers who had omitted to report their correct income. Our trust in taxpayers was proved right. Nearly 90 lakh taxpayers voluntarily updated their incomes by paying additional tax. Taking this trust further, I now propose to extend the time limit to file updated returns for any assessment year from the current limit of 2 years to 4 years. I propose to reduce the compliance burden for small charitable trusts and institutions by increasing their period of registration from 5 years to 10 years. It is also proposed that disproportionate consequences do not arise for minor defaults such as incomplete applications filed by charitable entities. Presently, taxpayers can claim the annual value of self-occupied properties as nil only on the fulfillment of certain conditions. Considering the difficulties faced by taxpayers, it is proposed to allow the benefit of 2 such self-occupied properties without any condition. To streamline the process of transfer pricing and to provide an alternative to yearly examination, I propose to introduce a scheme for determining arm's length price of international transaction for a block period of 3 years. This will be in line with global best practices. With a view to reduce litigation and provide certainty in international taxation, the scope of safe harbor rules is being expanded. A number of senior and very senior citizens have very old national savings schemes accounts. As interest is no longer payable on such accounts, I propose to exempt withdrawals made from NSS by individuals on or after 29th August 2024. I am also proposing to allow similar treatment to NPS Vatsalya accounts as is available to normal NPS accounts subject to overall limits. In my speech in July 2024, I had promised that all processes, including giving effect to appellate orders, shall be digitalized and made paperless over the next 2 years. So I'm happy to announce that digitalization is being made operational now. In July 2024, we brought in the Vivad Se Vishwas scheme to resolve income tax disputes pending in appeal. The scheme has received a great response, with nearly 33,000 taxpayers having availed of the scheme to settle their disputes. I have a few proposals to promote investment and employment. It is proposed to provide a presumptive taxation regime for non-residents who provide services to a resident company that is establishing or operating an electronics manufacturing facility. I further propose to introduce a safe harbor for tax certainty for non-residents who store components for supply to specified electronics manufacturing units. Presently, the tonnage tax scheme is available only to sea-going ships. The benefits of existing tonnage tax scheme are proposed to be extended to inland vessels registered under the Indian Vessels Act 2021 to promote inland water transport in the country. Extension for incorporation of startups. We continue to support the Indian startup ecosystem. I propose to extend the period of incorporation by 5 years to allow the benefit available to startups which are incorporated before 1/4/2030. In order to attract and promote additional activities in the IFSC, I am inter alia proposing specific benefits to ship leasing units, insurance offices, and treasury centers of global companies which are set up in IFSC. Further, to claim benefits, the cutoff date for commencement in IFSC has also been extended by 5 years to 31/3/2030. Category 1 and Category 2 AIFs are undertaking investments in infrastructure and other such sectors. I propose to provide certainty of taxation to these entities on the gains from securities, to promote funding from sovereign wealth funds and pension funds to the infrastructure sector. I propose to extend the date of making an investment by 5 more years up to 31st March 2030. Personal income tax reforms with special focus on middle class. Democracy, demography, and demand are the key support pillars in our journey towards Vikasit Bharat. The middle class provides strength for India's growth. This government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, has always believed in the admirable energy and ability of the middle class in nation building. In recognition of their contribution, we have periodically reduced their tax burden. Right after 2014, the nil tax slab was raised to 2.5 lakhs of rupees, which was further raised to 5 lakh rupees in 2019 and to 7 lakh rupees in 2023. This is reflective of our government's trust on the middle class taxpayers. I am now happy to announce that there will be no income tax payable up to income of 12 lakh rupees. lakh per month other than the special rate income such as capital gains under the new regime. This limit will be 12.75 lakh for salaried taxpayers due to the standard deduction of 75,000. Slabs and rates are being changed across the board to benefit all taxpayers. The new structure will substantially reduce the taxes of the middle class and leave more money in their hands, boosting household consumption, savings, and investment. In the new tax regime, I propose to revise tax rate structures as follows: 0 to 4 lakh rupees nil, 4.8 lakh rupees to 4 to 8 lakh rupees 5%, 8 to 12 lakh rupees 10%, 12 to 16 lakh rupees 15%, 16 to 20 lakh rupees 20%, 20 to 24 lakh rupees 25%, and above 24 lakh rupees 30%. To taxpayers up to 12 lakh of normal income other than special rate income such as capital gains. I read that again. To taxpayers up to 12 lakh of income other than special rate income such as capital gains, tax rebate is being provided in addition to the benefit due to slab rate reduction in such a manner that there is no tax payable by them. The total tax benefit of slab rate changes and rebate at different income levels can be illustrated with a few examples. A taxpayer in the new regime with an income of 12 lakh rupees will get a benefit of 80,000 rupees in tax, which is 100% of tax payable as per the existing rates. A person having income of 18 lakh rupees will get a benefit of 70,000 rupees in tax, that is 30% of tax payable as per existing rates. A person with an income of 25 lakh gets a benefit of 1,10,000 rupees, that is 25% of his tax payable as per existing rates. Details of my tax proposals are given in the annexure. As a result of these proposals, Honorable Speaker, sir, revenue of about 1 lakh crore in direct taxes and 2,600 crores in indirect taxes will be foregone. Mr. Speaker, sir, with this, I commend the budget to this august House.
Item number 2, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman.
Sir, with your permission, I rise to lay on the table the following statements under Section 3(1) of the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act 2003. Medium-term fiscal policy cum fiscal policy strategy statement and macroeconomic framework statement.
Item number 3, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman.
Sir, with your permission, I rise to move for leave to introduce the Finance Bill 2025.
प्रश्न ये है कि विधेयक को पुनर्स्थापित करने की अनुमति प्रदान की जाए। जो सदस्य इसके पक्ष में हाँ गए, जो सदस्य विरोध में ना गए, मेरे विचार में निर्णय हाँ वालों के पक्ष में हुआ, हाँ वालों के पक्ष में अनुमति प्रदान की जाती है। माननीय मंत्री जी, अब विधेयक को पुनर्स्थापित करें।
Sir, I introduce the bill.
थैंक यू। सभा की